This has been crazy. People do not like Indians. Oh, this has been some crazy fucking drama. Well, we don't. I don't know. My opinion is that I think that you can be critical of the H-1B visa program and say, oh, well, these are problems that it could create. Sure. But that doesn't necessarily mean that you have to hate Indians. I don't know. I feel like that's like kind of two different things, right? I mean, shit.
Tonight, as President-elect Donald Trump is preparing for a widespread immigration crackdown when he takes office 25 days from now, we're seeing a crack between some of his top advisors and his MAGA base. Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy are both facing major blowback from their own supporters for not only backing, but encouraging offering more visas to highly skilled foreign workers. Over the Christmas holiday, Musk posted this online saying, think of this like a pro sports team. If you want your team to win the championship, you need to recruit top talent wherever they may be. He later added, I'm referring to bringing in, via legal immigration, the top 0.1% of engineering talent as being essential for America to keep winning. He's talking about H-1B visas, which allow employers to hire highly skilled foreign workers. Musk, who himself is from South Africa, said that he once had this kind of visa, and he's arguing that Silicon Valley is facing a shortage of excellent engineering talent, as he put it. But the annual cap on those kinds of visas right now is at $65,000, with another $20,000 for those who get a master's or a doctorate in the U.S. Musk is being backed up by his partner in Trump's government efficiency initiative, Vivek Ramaswamy. He says it's a cultural issue that there aren't more competitive engineers in the U.S. Here's what he said.
He got a lot of people mad about saying this.
Online. A culture that celebrates the prom queen over the math Olympiad champ or the jock over the valedictorian will not produce the best engineers.
I'm going to be honest. I think Vivek is right. I do. I think he's right. And I think that there's two conversations that are happening. So the first conversation is that, is it good to import in talent of people that are extremely skilled so they can make make the country better? I think the answer to that is yes. Nobody seemed to, I don't know. I'm sure actually people probably did have a problem with it. But like, I mean, we did this after World War II, right? I mean, the Operation Paperclip, like this is something that we did ourselves. And so, for sure, citizens and government only. Yeah. I think that really the other issue that a lot of people have, and this is my understanding of it, so, take this with a grain of salt, is that what it seems like people are frustrated about is that the H-1B visas are not a equal program. And by the nature of that agreement, it gives the companies a better incentive to hire people based off of that versus hiring a person who is natively born here. And I think that also there's like accusations of nepotism, but racial nepotism and things like that. It's the fucking lottery. Yeah, it's cheaper labor, right? And so I think bringing people into the U.S. because you can pay them less money and they can do effectively the same job, I do think that that's problematic and that should not happen. So, like, I've always disliked the idea that the solution is to import in cheaper, second or third world labor. I find that to be very problematic. And Lamal Cry, well, no, I think that it's a very bad decision to have. And the reason why also is that it puts the person who is in that visa program at a disadvantageous position as well. And so, and this is also true with illegal immigrant workers also, is that those people do not have the same degrees of recourse that an American citizen would have. Like, if you get shortchanged and you're working as a illegal, construction worker or something like that, you can't just go to the government and have them resolve this problem because you don't have those same rights and privileges. And that ultimately is beneficial. It's a weird thing, right? Because it's actually the people that are being taken advantage of the most are in fact those immigrants, because they can't have the public gets cheaper stuff, the company gets cheaper products, and then these immigrants get absolutely fucked. And the other group of people that gets fucked over are the people that would be competing for those jobs. Now, a lot of like, illegal immigrant jobs, many of them, it's very hard to fill those positions with American workers for a lot of reasons. But with a lot of these engineering jobs, I don't really know what to believe because it's very hard. Like everybody is always talking about like personal anecdotes. But if I was a company, I would logically want to hire somebody who, if you needed the visa to stay in the country and the visa was tied to your employment, you would have a vested interest in staying employed, which would mean that I could probably overwork you and make you do things that a normal citizen would not do. And I find that to be a very problematic relationship. And I think that that's really what so I think that these are two, you can see kind of how like these are two separate conversations. I don't think that anybody has a problem with guys like Vivek coming over. Obviously, anytime that a person is critical of a culture that they're perceived to not be a part of, like, for example, I was critical of certain cultures, or Vivek is being critical of American culture since he's like Indian, people view it as like they get defensive about it. But I think that if you just take what Vivek is saying at face value, I think that he's absolutely accurate and he's completely right about this. Is that I think that we do have a culture that values aesthetics and optics more than effects and actual value. I think it's a huge, huge problem. Yeah, it's already happening. Yeah, Vivek was born in Cincinnati. No, I understand he's an American just the same as anybody else is. I'm not debating that. But of course he was, right? He would have had to have been born here to have run for president. But what I am saying is that he's he's perceived as an Indian, right? He's not white. So people are going to be defensive. That's the reason why. And I'm saying that, like, and this is what happens, like, basically, there's like an unspoken cultural rule where it's a lot more socially acceptable to criticize a culture that you're part of rather than a culture that you're not part of. That's just how it is.
A culture that venerates Corey from Boy Meets World, or Zach and Slater over Screech and Saved by the Bell, or Stefan over Steve Urkel and Family Matters will not produce the best engineers. But that argument is not going over well with Trump's MAGA base, certainly not online. Some of them saying, we did not ask them to engineer an immigration policy. Tech wants indentured servants, not high-skilled workers.
I think that she's right. This is a huge problem. But this is just, it's not about being Indian or not. That's not even the point.
You don't even know what MAGA immigration policy is. Now, Trump himself, who I should note restricted H-1B visas in his first term, has said on the campaign trail this time around that he did want to make it easier for educated foreigners to work in the U.S.
What I want to do and what I will do is you graduate from a college, I think you should get automatically as part of your diploma a green card to be able to stay in this country. And that includes junior colleges too. Anybody graduates from a college, you go in there for 2 years or 4 years. If you graduate or you get a doctorate degree from a college.
I don't agree with this, but I can see where he's coming from, sure. But no, I don't agree with this.
You should be able to stay in this country.
My political sources tonight are former New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio, CNN political commentator and Republican strategist Shermichael Singleton, and also CNN economics and political commentator Catherine Rampell. And Catherine, you have covered this issue for a long time. Can you just lay out what we're looking at here in this divide between what Elon Musk says he thinks would be the best for the United States and why we are seeing something that we have not seen, frankly, almost at all lately, which is a lot of people in the MAGA universe outright disagreeing with him, arguing with him, and breaking with him online.
Well, also, there's another component to this. A lot of people are comparing the criticism of this to people that are part of like the Trump supporters, that they're effectively like looking for DEI. And I think that comparison is actually accurate. But I think the difference is that people feel like a country should look after its own people first before it looks after other people instead. And I do think that it's problematic if like you're part of a country and they're doing more to, benefit people that aren't you, more than other people. Your argument's flawed. Well, you should explain why it's flawed rather than just telling me that I'm wrong. Right? That's it. And so what is this comment? I'll read it really quickly. People yelling you should help people hear first are delusional. Well, why? Why are they delusional about that? Why is that problematic? I did. You can't force education on people who don't want an education. So you're against bringing educated foreigners that are actually delusional. Well, no, my point is that I think that there are a lot of people that are looking for engineering jobs here. And I think that if you follow, so this is the way that I would logically evaluate it. And I could be wrong about this, but this is the way that I would see it logically, is that it would be better to hire an employee that would be cheaper and also would have extra incentive to stay at the company. And from my understanding of these H-1B visas, it achieves both of those effects. So a company acting in its own best interest would create an outcome that would benefit these people over native workers. Now, I could be wrong about that, but I feel like that's what would make sense, right? I agree with you, but we can't help everyone is my point. Not everybody is going to be an engineer. You're completely right. That's totally true.
So Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy in this particular case, I think are exactly right. America's ability to attract talent from around the world is basically our economic superpower. The fact that in particular, we've been able to attract high-skilled immigrants quite reliably in this country over the past century or so is why we have this enduring leadership.
That's always the way it's been. Yeah, and it's unironically, like, it's going to sound cliche, but it's one of the things that makes America great is the fact that people can come here from like other parts of the world, and if they're motivated and, you know, they want to make something special and important, then yeah, absolutely they can come here and do that. I think that the consideration is the degree more than anything else.
Science, tech, and business. So just as an example, of all Fortune 500 companies, about half of them were founded by immigrants or the children of immigrants.
Sure.
And of the Nobel laureates, American Nobel laureates who have received prizes for the hard sciences this century, about 40% of them are immigrants who came to this.
I also think that American, like, Western culture is in a lot of ways corrosive. Like, in some ways, I think that it's very good. Like, for example, the perspective on free speech and free expression. But I think that the way that American culture prioritizes and views aesthetics and optics above effect and hard work, I think that it's extremely unhealthy. And I do think that cultures that reward, beauty over an intelligence, basically, these are cultures that will not be as intelligent. I think this is just true. It's only getting worse. Yeah, I think it is too. People are way too materialistic for sure. Yeah, I think so as well. It's because you never saw Chinese culture. It's completely backwards. I'm glad I left. I don't know about that.
Country. So again, this is our superpower, and I'm very glad that Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy recognize it. I very much hope that they are able to influence Donald Trump on this particular issue, but I'm doubtful about it because, just as you mentioned, in his first term, Trump was actually quite hostile to legal immigrants, in particular, by the way, high-skilled legal immigrants. He made it really hard for them to come here, not just those who wanted work authorization, international students who cross-subsidize American students, by the way. He basically harassed them and made it very difficult for them to keep their legal documents in order.
Yeah.
That's because, as much as Trump has said, he only objects to illegal immigration, he's very much in favor of legal immigration. His policies don't bear that out, and that's partly because Stephen Miller is the one who...
In my perspective, this is just my opinion, but I think that all immigration should serve to benefit the actual people in America. There should be nobody else who's taken into consideration other than people that are here. So, like, if something is not a net positive for the people that are already here, then it shouldn't happen. If it is a net positive, then it should happen. That's stupid. Well, no, I don't think that it is. I think that a country's government should operate in the best interest of the people in the country. Like, unequivocally. And so, like, that's the only thing that really matters. How would that be measured? A lot of ways you could measure it. You could measure it about, like, job placement. You could measure it with, like, the way they pay taxes. There's a lot of ways. That's common sense. Yeah, exactly. What about your companies and competitiveness? I think that competitiveness can be measured in a lot of different ways.
Was the architect of Donald Trump's immigration policies last time around, and will probably do so again this time around, and is unlikely to adopt the sort of Musk, Vivek Ramaswamy view of things.
Yeah, Stephen Miller's getting a huge job in the West Wing. He's been around Trump for the 4 years he was out of office. And sure, Michael, as the Republican here, I wonder what your view on this is, because this is happening within the Republican Party. I mean, these are two top advisors to Trump, the MAGA world, who are kind of framing this as the true believers, who say, we asked for stricter immigration policies. That didn't mean coming with a carve out for high skilled workers that they say are taking American jobs here.
Yeah, look, I think with all due respect to Mr. Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy, they should focus on saving federal dollars for the taxpayers and not immigration policy. I understand some of the points that Catherine made, and I agree to an extent. But I think the U.S. should focus more on domestic skill development. Studies also show.
I agree with them. I think that should be the primary focus, too. Yeah, I totally agree with them.
That H-1B1 exacerbates employers hiring individuals from outside of the country when they could potentially hire minorities, for an example, which we know there's a shortage in the STEM fields. There are a significant number of Americans who I think would love opportunities if they had the proper training and skills to operate in those jobs fairly well. So why not start and focus there? I'm not of the support or mindset, Caitlin, that we should let in more than the 60,000+ that were already let into the country. Do we have some deficits? I certainly understand that point, again, to what Catherine was sort of alluding to. But I think by focusing on increasing domestic skill development, you can decrease the furtherance of those deficits by virtue of saying, you know what, we're going to spend more of our time, more of our dollars educating our own citizens
I think he's right.
to compete for these jobs versus saying, let's increase to 100,000 or maybe even more for employers to bring in individuals from India, which is a predominant country where many of them come from. I don't agree with that at all. And I think folks in the MAGA world have every right to be angry with Vivek and Elon Musk.
Yeah, well,
I don't even think it's necessarily like, I don't think it's like really that. It's a matter of like priorities and values. I don't think that it's necessarily like one perspective is like really 100% wrong. It's just like which perspective that you go with, right? I mean, and also I think it's probably a mix of the two more than anything.
Point, because I saw that argument being made, but also I saw Mark Cuban, Mr. Mayor, responding to that saying, well, and I think we have what he had posted, quoting to Elon Musk and Vivek, saying, well, everyone, argue college is overrated. If you're arguing we need to have more homegrown engineers, don't we need more kids who are going to college? I mean, I think he's being a bit sarcastic there, but that is kind of the...
I think that he's obviously being sarcastic. Everybody's saying college is overrated. They're referring to gender studies degrees, not STEM degrees.
Dual arguments that you see sometimes.
That's not what's happening.
Political orbit.
Look, I see a couple of things going on here. First of all, I have to say I agree with Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy. I think they're pointing out the reality that we're living. You could say, and I hear Michael's point, I disagree with it, though, because I think it misses the fact we want to get to the place where we can maximize the use of our own talent in this country. Let's bring in the best and brightest from all around the world. Let's really make our economy stronger. Let's become even more tech dominant. That's the way, in fact, to elevate the whole country and to create more opportunity for Americans of all kinds in the tech field. So I don't know why on earth we wouldn't want to grab all the talent out there, especially because if we don't, our competitors will. I think it's also fascinating that we're seeing this kind of open conflict. I think it's going to be the first of many. And of course, that speaks to the question of Elon Musk's role. I think really soon we're going to see more divergence between Elon Musk and Donald Trump. It's natural, given each of them having the power they have. I think that's going to be a very, very important storyline in 2025, that these two people who appear to be allies but really have very different interests start to diverge issue by issue. We saw it also.
I don't really see this as being a problem. I mean, everybody's always going to disagree with other people about things. Like a good example of this is that a lot of times when somebody runs for like president or vice president, the person that they choose to be their vice president was usually a person that ran against them. So, yeah, that doesn't really seem like it's a bad thing. The media trying to create friction. Yeah, I think that there's been a lot of playing up of the friction. Yeah, Elon wasn't elected, though. Yeah, well, the media wasn't either. That doesn't stop them from trying to put their agenda into things, too.
During the recent budget fight, I think we're going to see it on issues like artificial intelligence and climate, where Musk has been in a different place than Trump. That's going to have ramification for how successful Trump can be in general. And then finally, I mean, look, for the MAGA world to be turning on their own this quickly. This is also an interesting question. They almost look like Democrats here. It's like, so I say this lovingly as a Democrat, like we have an ability to eat our own very quickly sometimes. Well, this is fascinating. Here are these heroes just a few minutes ago, and they say one thing that a lot of the MAGA world disagrees with, and suddenly they're being villainized. That's not good for that coalition.
Yeah,
I think that that's not good, period. And I think that he brings up a really good point about how this happens with both parties, and it's really bad. Yeah, I think that's a huge issue. That, like, you can be aligned on, like, 9 out of 10 things, but the one thing that you're not aligned on, somehow that's the reason why you go to war. And I think that's the issue, right? It's that people can't find common ground, and they constantly purity test each other until they can find a reason to go to war. Very, very annoying to see.
That's interesting in terms of what the West Wing will look like, too. I mean,
it happens
Musk
on the
is
internet, too.
Catherine.
Like, how many times is there somebody like J.K. Rowling, great example of this, right? You know, she said one thing that's, you know, like, oh, well, trans women don't have the same experience real women do. Okay, now she's a right-wing extremist. Like, come on. What are we doing here? Some of the radicalization that people have is just completely fucking overblown. Massively overblown.
But in an official capacity, but he's
wife?
in the room.
Okay.
He's always at Mar-a-Lago. Trump jokes about how he's always often there. He has dinner with him regularly.
She's a radical feminist. It is not a radical. Calling somebody a radical feminist does not mean that they are a radical feminist. It is not a radical position to say that a person who transitions from being a male to a female is going to have a different lived experience than a person who was born a female. This is not a radical position to have. This is a position that 90% of logical people have. Actually, that's not true. Probably 99% of logical people have. You're just using vocabulary to make it seem like it's wrong.
Between that and the tech moguls who have been parading down to Mar-a-Lago to also have dinner with him, I wonder what that looks like with this divide that is so clear between Stephen Miller and what he has been advocating for and what we know he did in the first term, and what this looks like with a new big advisor in Trump's ear like Elon Musk.
Trump seems to listen to the last person he heard from. So if that is Elon Musk, it might be Elon Musk. If it's Stephen Miller, and as you point out, Stephen Miller will have a very powerful job in the next administration, it's probably going to be him. Frankly, I don't think Trump pays all that much attention to the nitty-gritty policies that are taking effect under his watch, which is probably why he doesn't even realize that last time around, he did a lot more to reduce legal immigration than illegal immigration because Stephen Miller was running the show. So I think that whatever Trump says he wants to do, the actual people who are executing the policy at the end of the day will be making the decisions.
Who knows, right? It's almost impossible to say. But in my opinion, I think that having immigration from people that are like really highly skilled is a good thing. And it's an overall net positive for sure. And, but the issue I think that a lot of people have is that they think that the current system incentivizes cannibalizing existing American jobs. And I think that that's a legitimate concern to have. I think both of these things are true at the same time. And I think that if you're going to invest money into cultivating talent, I think that the best thing to do is to invest money into cultivating talent here, right? Because like at the end of the day, this is the way that I see it. is that you're taking that money away from people with the threat of violence through taxes. And I think that ethically, you have an obligation to use that money to benefit those people in the way that's most beneficial towards them. And so that's why I think that they should be, helped out for sure. So yeah, isn't that communism? Communism is not when people get taxes. No, that's not true. And not when hundreds of thousands will come every year. Well, that's what I'm saying, right? And so I think that most people would agree that bringing in some people that are very highly skilled is something that's beneficial and good. But I think that also most people would agree that bringing in so many people that they place people that are natively here out of jobs because of, basically pay discrepancies or other types of advantages is also a bad thing, right? Like I feel like there's an obvious nuance and an obvious middle ground here that people are kind of refusing to see. So yeah, I find this like the conversation to be kind of odd. What if we're using towards a UBI structure rather than keeping citizens in the workforce? Oh, I think that we will, but that's not going to happen for quite a while, I would assume. Probably longer than I would expect, because nowadays people are very much against that more than they were before. Sounds like a skill issue situation. Well, it is a skill issue situation in a lot of cases, but is it really a skill issue when a person is willing to work for like a lot less money than you are, and then they get hired instead of you? Is that really a skill issue? Because in a way it is, yeah, but it's also something that's unhealthy for the country. So I think that's really the conversation more than anything else. And people paying taxes, yeah, desperation issue, exactly. And so, less money, longer hours, etc. Because this mostly benefits one group the most, Indians. So a lot of people are going to see it and find it unfair. Yeah, I don't know why there's are there a lot of them Indians because just India is a really big country, and so like just by like the nature of the fact that there's a lot of people there, a lot of them are coming over are Indians. I really actually don't know. I don't know the answer for that. The Americans don't want to be engineers. I think there are a lot of Americans that don't want to be engineers. Absolutely. But yeah, that's my viewpoint on it.
Tonight, as President-elect Donald Trump is preparing for a widespread
fucking
immigration
piece of
crackdown.
shit.